Well, thank you all for joining us for this breakout session at Purpose Summit 2021. We are excited to have, oh my gosh, you with us. I'm super excited to introduce our next speaker, Paul Epstein, who is the incredible thought leader and author of The Power of Playing Offense. And man, he is just a powerhouse that is going to give you some very actionable steps to help you move forward to fulfill the purpose that you're created for. So Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's go.
All right. I love it, Davin. Thank you so much. And I'm fired up to be with y'all. Even though I wrote The Power of Playing Offense, I've never been introduced as a powerhouse. So that is a first in life. And I kind of liked it, Davin. So kudos, man. All right. So all in all, we are here today for a few reasons. And I have been joining virtually, mind you, for the entire summit. And I have just been so jazzed about the first day, really double clicking on what is individual purpose. Yesterday, team, culture, organization, how do we zoom out? And today's kind of the meeting of the minds of blending the two. And so, yes, we will go through an inspiring journey and a backstory, largely which follows my 15 years in the professional sports world. But I think even beyond that, it's using my story as a narrative for how we can apply it to your life, so that the first step, of course, is that discovery of purpose. But then what do we do from there? Because to me, that's the secret sauce. That's the part that sometimes we miss on, because if you're anything like me, you got a lot going on in life. There's family, there's work, there's just life. And now you throw in 2020 and kind of, the remnants that we're coming out of, and all of this to say, purpose is the heartbeat of all the good in the world. And if we had the awareness to make decisions and daily actions through that lens, we all know that there's a better world to live in. So today is that first step of just shining a light on not only finding our purpose, but then how do we put it in action? So with that, this is the backdrop, folks. These are the business cards, the logos. This is the world that I was a part of for nearly a decade and a half. I know y'all can't see me on Zoom in the sense of just, the full profile, but let's say I am 5'9" and about $180. So by looking at those logos, you probably can already connect the dots. I wasn't on the field. I wasn't on the court. I was in the boardroom. I was in a business leadership role for the duration of those 15 years. So starting with 3 NBA clubs, sales leadership, then that took me to the NFL league office with my global agency, and we got to break Super Bowl revenue records there. Then I go to the San Francisco 49ers, and we open Levi's Stadium, charged with selling over $1 billion of revenue. So needless to say, what I really focus on there is I am accustomed to being around high performance. While I wasn't on the field or the court, I was immersed in the same front office, having daily interactions with coaches, with GMs, with people on the athletic side. And then you parlay that into sales management, sales performance. And what I've gotten to do now is curate a lot of my insights after the 15-year journey and ask myself, what did the elite do to separate themselves from the pack? And what I have now found out about performance is that there are two groups of people: those that play offense and those that play defense. What that looks like: offense, they're seemingly always on their toes. Defense, they're seemingly always falling back on their heels. To dive further into this, defense, they have a playing not to lose mentality. So they're never going to fail big, but they're never going to win big. It's like going to Vegas, craps table with 20 bucks in your pocket. Who does that? People that play defense. But for those that play offense, we play to win. Now, playing to win is easy in blue skies. But what do you do in a year like last? What do you do when the storm hits? And that is where people that play offense, they pivot, they reinvent. They intentionally will take 2 steps back to take 10 forward, but they're always on the move. That is the offensive mindset. Defense, external circumstances, the market dictates the terms. Offense, we operate on our terms. We play with purpose, we play with passion, and we take control of our future. So now, I ask you, individually, for your team, for your culture, for your organization, for your family, for your friends, but most importantly, as you look in the mirror, the question is, how do you want to play? And if you're anything like me, you choose offense 10 out of 10 times. So if that is the backdrop, folks, offense and playing with purpose is the name of the game. That is what launched me into what turned out to be one of the more purpose-driven projects, initiatives, and frankly, the mission of my life. And putting pen to paper, this book was entirely written in the first 3 months post-quarantine of 2020. I went in what I call a writing cocoon to essentially say the impact I want to create. The mission that I want to drive is to touch 1 million leaders' lives by the year 2030. And so I thought about how can I scale that impact, because live events are taken away, keynote speaking taken away. So how can I manifest that impact? And this was the end result. And here's how I want to pull you in to really what I say, meet at the 50 and lock arms with me together on this mission to play offense, because I believe that each and every person on this call at this summit is a leader. But I also think that the world doesn't believe that. I also believe that the world has misdefined what leadership is. The world says leadership is a rank, it is a role, it is title, it is authority. Well, folks, if that's the case, then I can look at an org chart, or I can look at the globe, and I know there's a 10-to-1 ratio of positional leader to non. So that means less than 10% of the world is classified as a leader. And I think that's wrong. I think it makes people feel small. It makes people not feel seen. It makes them feel like they can't make a contribution and that they don't matter. So my mission is to democratize leadership, and not just any type of leadership, but purpose-driven leadership. And here is the thesis, not only of the book, but the spirit of what we're going to talk about going forward. Before you lead others, you must first lead yourself. And with that in mind, you and I are leaders. No title required to lead ourselves. And if we're going to do this, we're going to need a playbook. And that's where the 5 pillars of playing offense come into play. And I think you'll especially love the first, living with championship purpose. So to set the table for the rest of our time together today, there are 5 pillars of playing offense, of which we're going to tackle a few today, but we're going to go extremely deep and spend the majority of our time here in the first, because my belief is that this first pillar of living with championship purpose is foundational to the rest of the journey. As an example, the second pillar is to be a storm chaser. What that means is, how do you show up with more grit and resilience? Well, if you have purpose, that's going to give you the energy that you need to show up with greater resilience and greater courage. And the way to think about this is, in life, purpose keeps you on the treadmill, especially on the days you want to get off. I'll repeat that. Purpose keeps you on the treadmill, especially on the days you want to get off. And so let's start to go into this first pillar. When you play defense in this pillar, you get stuck. You lack meaning in each day. But when you play offense, you not only feel alive, you feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. That's where the personal mission, and that's where the North Star comes into play. And again, these are all lessons that I took from my 15-year run in the pro sports world. But looking at what happens on the court or on the field, as I got to interact with a lot of athletes and understand what separated the elite from the pack, what I saw was a very distinct difference in the sense of those that not just won the game, but those that had sustained championship performance. They believed deeply in the game that they play. And that deep belief is what you and I call purpose. Those athletes, those performers that had a deeper meaning in why they play the game, they were the ones that were built to last, versus the others. It's a sugar high. You win a game, You don't win the season, nevertheless form a dynasty. And so I always get asked, what are the most purpose-driven moments, memories, events, experiences from this run? And there's no doubt, especially with football so near and dear to my heart, those 2 trophies right there were everything to me. To get to be a part of multiple Super Bowls, break a revenue record, work at 345 Park Ave, have conversations with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, all of that was like a kid in a candy store, dream come true. But now that I can look in the rear view mirror at this journey, I'll tell you that NFL experience paled in comparison. The Super Bowl experience finishes a distant second because March 12th of 2016, I got to marry my rock, my best friend, the love of my life, Myra, on the field of Levi Stadium. And before I go on, I know what you're thinking. You look at her top right, you look at me, you're like, dude, totally outkicked your coverage. Like that is a mismatch. Fact, 100% true. But remember, I got a sales background. So you could call this the greatest sale and proudest sale of my life. And so we are just happy as clams. Everybody is healthy. We're out here in LA. We're getting a lot better out here. 4 months ago, Myra and I had a magical day again, and we gave birth to our baby PJ. So proud first-time parents. So we're going through it. If you can't see the bags under the eyes, it's quite a purpose-driven journey, as those of you parents know. But at this time, we did not have babies. We had fur babies. So you see our little Labradoodles, top left, Arthur, Oliver, rocking and rolling, doing their virtual cameo on the video board. And also, I know you can't tell by the name, Paul Epstein. You can make the cultural connections from there. I'm a proud Mexican descent, as is my wife. And so let's just say there was a lot of tacos, there was a lot of tequila, and there might have even been a mariachi band, a first in Levi Stadium history. Everything that I just shared from the most humble and proud place of my heart is to say that life was really good. Nothing was broke. I had nothing to fix. I was running away from absolutely nothing. Then why, a little over a year after this magical day, did I have a Jerry Maguire moment? I left sports 100% on my own terms. No regrets. I've never looked back. And the reason is because this leap that I'm about to share more details about in the rest of our time together, it was founded on one principal thing. And that thing is what brought us all here together today: purpose. At a leadership offsite retreat, when I'm head of sales for the San Francisco 49ers, it's me, the entire executive team. We went away for 2 days to find our why as individuals. Finding my why has been the greatest gift that I have ever received. And for those of you that understand your purpose, have clarity around it, it's on paper, it guides your life, it's your compass, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I knew that something extremely special had happened. And I knew deep down inside, while I couldn't manifest all the details, I knew that I wanted to dedicate the rest of my life to share that gift of purpose with others. And the next detail also won't surprise you. My why: to inspire purpose in others so they can play offense in life. It's fascinating that those words came about a handful of years before the book, a keynote, any brand of mine that manifested as playing offense. The breadcrumbs were already there a handful of years prior. So by day, at this point in time, I find my why. I'm still the head of sales for the 49ers. But by night, by weekend, every discretionary ounce of time, energy, effort that I now had a new hat. It was what started as a passion project, something I did as, call it, a professional side hustle within the four walls of my organization. I became the why coach of the San Francisco 49ers. And before I make it sound like it's too big of a deal, because it really wasn't at the beginning. At the beginning, here's what happened. I get back from this retreat and people, especially on my team, are like, what the hell was in the punch? Like, what kind of Kool-Aid did they serve at this retreat? And like, you just have a different aura, a different energy. And they said, I want some of that. I said, all right, well, let's do it. Let's find some time before work, after work, and I'll take you through the same experience that I went through. And so what started as individuals on my team, water cooler buzz starts to spread, HR catches wind of it, and then it eventually became a more formal process. And I'll talk more about how we integrated that and scaled that throughout the organization in a bit. But that's what it started as, folks. I was just following my calling. I was just following this purpose bug that I got at the retreat. And then essentially I said, I have a compass that I didn't have before that retreat. How do I help other people get that compass? Step into each day with more clarity, more conviction. Little did I know that a handful of years later, I am now birthing my own consultancy called Purpose Labs, where I literally every single day get to help people, teams, and organizations do the same thing that a handful of years prior was me being the why coach on the side as a passion project at the 49ers. So here's what that compass looked like. And here's what I started to coach out for folks. Think about your life in this sense. Think of this model as your identity. From the inside out, your purpose is your why. Your values are your who. Together, that's your identity. That's who you are. That's how you're hardwired. Now, as we extrapolate out, your life experiences to date inform your belief system, which basically are your attitudes that you show up with. Attitudes drive decisions. Decisions lead to actions. So zooming out, these outer layers are how you show up. The inner layers are who you are. The question is, are they connected? Are they aligned? Are they congruent? Because if not, then we struggle to find consistency, confidence, authenticity, and to step into each day empowered. So when we stepped into this conversation, we said, how do you activate your purpose? And this is a model from the inside out, starting with your core identity and who you are, all the way to how you show up. Without intentionality, without process, without awareness, this gets to be damn near impossible because we all step back into the rat race of life. So this is what has kept me grounded. And by the end of our time together today, I hope to be able to make this a very portable and actionable model for you to integrate. So the first step is this. Some of you may have come into this conversation already knowing what your core values are, which is awesome. So what I'm about to share makes the assumption you didn't come into this conversation with values. If you did, then pick your top 3. Otherwise, if you're brand spanking new and you say, hey, you know what? I have never really discovered, or I've never gone through a process to discover values. Look at this list, folks. And for you personally, I want you to pick 3 of the words. Pick 3 that resonate the most with you, that describe you the best, that jump off the page. And if you get stuck, if I was to ask the 5 people in life that know you the best, would they point to some of these words consistently? Would there be a usual suspect? Would there be common themes? So take a few moments. I'll go quiet for about 30 seconds here. Choose 3 words from this list. And again, if you had values coming into this conversation, pick the 3 values that you're most proud of. About 15 more seconds. Okay, so I'm hoping by now you have your 3 words, and keep those 3 words. And here's what I'm gonna ask you to do. If you've got a pen in hand, write them down. If you don't, put them in your phone, send yourself a text with the 3 words, email yourself the 3 words, document them in your notes, whatever process is best for you. Jot these down because it's gonna feed the action item that we're gonna get to in a bit. All right, so jot those 3 words down and I will continue forward. My belief is that I want to set you up for success to implement a lot of those same purpose-driven principles that we did at the 49ers and beyond, what I've done with Purpose Labs, all of that good stuff. So here's what I want to do. Rather than just kind of say, hey, go do this, I actually want to role model it. I want to lead by example. And so part of this is These were the 6 values that I walked away from the leadership offsite retreat with. And so the 2 things I'm going to eventually ask you to do, one, and some of this will fall after our time together today, but this is, call it the homework bucket. Even though I don't like the word, it is what it is. We got to commit to action after the summit. So your takeaway is going to be 2 things. With the 3 words that you chose, in this case, I have 6. I want you to define them in your own words. No Webster, no dictionary, no Google. What is your unique definition, long form or short form, of the 3 words that you chose? I'm going to share mine in a bit. Then it's going to be, now, how do you apply that to your everyday life? How do you make decisions with it? How do you take action through that lens? And so with that, where we're going to go with this is, here's my quick definitions. Impact is how I make every single decision in life. Literally, if there's a fork in the road, option A, option B, which has greater impact? Even if it goes against how we're logically connected, financial to the left, impact to the right. Prior to finding my purpose and understanding my core values and putting them on paper, dude, you chase your livelihood. You do stuff to put food on the table. You do whatever you do because there's a different lens. But now impact became that driver. Belief. I believe in people because they have believed in me. Unfortunately, I haven't always had that deepest belief in people because I sometimes cared so much that when I got disappointed or when I felt somebody let me down, then I would jump off the wagon, and that's not cool. But I needed to understand that if my core value is belief, I cannot give up on people. If anything, when I see somebody in a rougher, more challenging spot, it now inspires me to lean in even more. But that didn't happen all the time until I started to be true to this core value. My next value is authenticity. I have sold out during my leadership journey for the benefit of career growth. On my best day, I would follow Paul to no end. On my worst day, I didn't deserve a single follower in this world. And all of that to say that I was woken up at a performance review to say, look, kind of that Roosevelt quote that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I had a gap because my heart cared. My actions didn't show it. And that's the moral of this entire conversation. You could have purpose, but if you don't act on it, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just this thing. If you need to put it in life, I wasn't showing that authentic value of care that I had. My heart cared, my actions didn't back it up. My team let me know about it, and I deserved it. But now I have rededicated myself from that point, which was about 6 years ago, to say, who am I on my best day? Let me be my best authentic self. Growth. Thanks to the world of Carol Dweck, which most of you are familiar with, the growth mindset. For me, this was a transformation from fixed to growth. Fixed mindset, life is linear. We focus on hurdles, obstacles, why we cannot do something, versus growth mindset. Now it was about possibilities, opportunities, and why we can do something. Partnership. You may have already heard me say this today. Meet me at the 50. That is my spirit for how I enter every single day. Literally right now, you are meeting me at the 50. 2 equal parties of equal energy and investment in each other's goals and objectives. And lastly, courage. Courage I define as standing tallest when fear and risk are highest. That is my definition of courage. Those are my definitions of these words, some short form, some long form. That is exactly how I want you to approach those 3 words that you selected to define them in your own unique way. Now let's get into the more meat of what we're going to be talking about. Here is how I started. We're back on the journey. So to follow me, this was probably 14 out of 15 years into the journey. And I find my why. I go to this leadership offsite retreat. I come back to the office. I'm now exercising a lot of my gifts as the why coach of the 49ers. And then what? How did I apply it to my day job? And that was this. I was the head of sales for the 49ers. So when you think about an NFL venue, there's about 70,000 fans, customers that come in each and every game. I was responsible for the revenue that brought into the organization, along with my team, that I owe them all the credit for the performance. Now, part of this was, there's 2 philosophies in coaching. There's win at all costs, or there's the score will take care of itself. I used to pre-purpose be in that win at all costs mindset, which is part of what challenged some of those values that I was vulnerable enough to say, hey guys, I haven't always aced this test. All right. But it was here that I said, I know there's a better way. I know there's a more purpose-driven way for us to create a sales enterprise and to put not only our fans first, but even more important, start by winning the inside game of people and culture and leadership. And if you win the inside game, my philosophy now became post-purpose that you can win the external game of the market. So what I did is I approached our president and CFO and said, guys, I have an idea. I believe that we can increase our productivity, our performance, and yes, our profits, because remember, the CFO's in the room and they make life decisions in Excel. So I had to speak to the CFO. And here I am, the head of sales. And I'm like, look, guys, let me run with this purpose mindset. Let me bring it to life. Let me beta. Allow me the opportunity to incubate a purpose-driven department that we will generate revenue. And if we don't generate more revenue than the prior year, I know what that means for me. But I am betting on myself because I believe that there is a better way to do business and to treat our people. And that is what birthed the Sales Academy. I call it also the Talent Academy of the 49ers. And so as we think about this environment, they gave me the blessing. Thankfully, I had a lot of capital coming into that call because I was a part of the $1 billion team that helped open up the venue. So there was high trust, high relationship, and they gave me the keys, and I'm super blessed because without them, this story doesn't happen. So here's what we did. I now want to give this to you. I call this the People 360 Blueprint. And this is how we take purpose into decision and action from an organizational level. And then we're going to cover the individual after. All of this is in my book, and I really dedicated a chapter to speak to talent leaders out there. And I said, if we can infuse purpose-driven action in each of these 5 stages, that is winning. And then the score will take care of itself, meaning greater performance, productivity, profits, et cetera, greater engagement. So here's what we did. I'll be very tactical here and I'm going to zip through. Recruiting and onboarding. My recommendation is conduct a why discovery for each and every person that enters your organization. That may sound like a lot. There may need to be some infrastructure. But when you understand somebody's why, you now understand what gets them out of bed. And we're here at the Purpose Summit because this sounds like a great idea. The hard part is in the execution, but I'll tell you that this is what we did. 2-week onboarding process. The second Friday on that second week, cut the day in half, afternoon, come to my home, pizza, beers, drooling and jumping labradoodles, all included. And in those 4 hours of me guiding people in this beta environment, to find their why, we now had a model to say, here's the 49ers why, which is to go one step further for each person we touch so that they feel a part of our family. We started with that. We then found their personal purpose. And then we found out if there was a connection point. And in 9 out of 10 cases, there was, and they now automatically felt like they were a part of something bigger. Moving into training and people development. Everybody on this call at this summit, we get trained on function, we get trained on the technical stuff, we get trained on skills. Who trains on people? In other words, what the world calls soft skills, which I don't like, I call them foundational skills. We created a program at the 49ers that we called Personal and Professional Development U. It essentially taught people things such as emotional intelligence. Who trains that to an entry level? We did, because we believed that if you can start there, now it can permeate throughout the organization and you're growing talent with greater awareness of self, situation, and others. We trained people in emotional management. We trained people in conflict and how to navigate, how to resolve. We trained people in organizational communication. Some people, the dirty word is politics, but what if you understand the way that organizations operate and communicate from an entry level, and we baited what that could look like? We trained on negotiation. Everything in life is a negotiation. That is a meet me at the 50 principle. Negotiation taught us how to drive more empathy and greater listening into our organization, because it's not about your agenda. It's if you can create a win for the other side and they do the same. Now that's how you create partnerships cross-departmentally. That was what we did in that sector. Engagement and community building. this was a good one. And I want each of you, I think you can implement this tomorrow with your team, with your organization. I call them listening sessions. Think of them as employee focus groups. And so what we did, we said, if the 49ers why is to go one step further for every person we touch so that they can feel a part of our family, that's up on a board. And you have everybody looking at it that you're bringing in through the process. And you say, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. In order to live up to that purpose, what do we need to do more of? Where do we need to get better? What do we need to do different? More, better, different. And we sourced all 3. And that turned into a few things. A greater culture. B, everybody now felt like they were being engaged and that their fingerprints were on the blueprint. In other words, through the power of choice and the power of voice, they were now able to create more positive influence in the environment that we were asking them to pour in their blood, sweat, and tears. But we had to come to them and say, if this is our purpose, where are we nailing it? Let's double down on that. Where do we need to make some slight tweaks? That's the do better. And then the do different is like, guys, like, where do we need to do a 180? Like, we're missing the mark. And they gave us that feedback and we listened to them. And that was kind of that piece. The evaluation and career growth. In my opinion, there's organizations that, you know, we hear mission, vision, values, and you and I both know that for 80, 90% of companies, they're nothing more than words on a wall. They're never brought to life, unfortunately. And so for those 10 to 20% of organizations, what they'll do for something like their core values, they'll use it as that driver for 3 things: hire, fire, and promote. Hire, fire, and promote based on values. Are you hiring solely for resume? That's 50% of the equation. What about embodying the corporate values, the team values that you want to see? Firing really hard. Hey, if I give you a hypothetical, would you fire your top performer, but you know, they're kicking butt on the board, but their values, not so much. Most organizations, they'll say that they'll make the right decision. BS, they'll keep the employee because they perform. They put more numbers on the board. It is what it is. So if you're going to be true to values, then that's when you're going to be tested in those hard decisions. Lastly, the promotion. At the Niners in the academy, we base promotions on 2 things: KPIs and metrics and goals on one side, and espousing the values and actually living the values on the other. It was a 50-50 equation. If you don't do the 50%, you can stay in your current role. You will not go up the org chart if you are not living and breathing the values and inspiring others to do the same. Now, recognition and retention. This is a fun one, folks. I call it, make it a day they'll never forget. And here's what I'm going to pose. Now, it's harder in a virtual setting, but still possible. I'll say, whether post-COVID, while we're still in the pandemic, make this work for whatever environment you're in. When you're recognizing somebody, not necessarily for the daily, you should be doing that, because nobody wants to work in that environment where you do 99 things right, never hear a word. You do one thing wrong, you never hear the end of it. I've been there, done that. I'm sure you have too. That sucks. Let's not be in that scenario. But assuming that you're doing the right things on the day-to-day recognition, zoom out. What about that quarterly event? What about that annual event? The one where there's high fives and bear hugs and trophies and champagne and all that good stuff. That's the event I'm talking about. Here's the reality. You want a team member to pour their life into the organization, into the company. We take people away from their families. Their families are some of the most connected spirits of their purpose. People do what they do to make their family proud, to put food on the table. Like, family is at the center. It's the nucleus of a lot of things, purpose-driven. So if they're going to be away from their family, why don't we reintegrate their family back into the equation when we're supposed to be putting them on a pedestal for a job well done? So when Susie or Billy at that annual event is receiving their trophy, before that event, confidentially reach out to their immediate family and have them backstage or somewhere hidden off to the side at that event. And when Susie or Billy gets that trophy in their hand and they're literally just overjoyed because the company gave them a bravo, you have their family join to make it a day they'll never forget. Integrate people's family into the celebration. I promise you that is an employee and a team member for life. So Quick recap: recruiting and onboarding, integrate why discoveries at the culmination of onboarding. Training and people development, start a personal and professional development university inside of your team, culture, organization. Engagement and community building, host listening sessions. Here's our company or team purpose. How do we need to do more, better, or different to live up to it? Evaluation and career growth, hire, fire, and promote based on values, recognition, and retention. Make it a day they'll never forget. I hope this was useful at a team and organizational level. Now, let's get back into this crazy Paul Epstein journey here. We've got about 10 minutes left, so we'll rock. All right. I never thought that I would be going back to school, but part of kind of chasing that career dream was just to get to the C-suite, and that was my mindset. And so I know there's a lot of Go Blue out there. We're not too far off where the summit is, but this was my opportunity to not only step into an MBA program, but really, I wouldn't have met one of the most amazing women in my life, my executive coach, Sue Ann, had it not been for Michigan. She was the program's coach, and this was the conversation. And here's what I want you to think about. Think about this. Sue Ann says, I know what you do. You're the head of sales for the Niners. What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? And what do you tolerate? I answered all three. She said, go deeper on the love bucket. I said, all right. I love being a coach just like you. I love molding, growing, developing talent. I love the culture side of business. And she said, awesome. On a good day, what percentage of your time are you doing that? And I sugarcoated it a bit. I pumped it up to about 20%, but I was slouching down in my chair because I just hated that I had to share that. And she said, okay, I wave a wand, you become your boss tomorrow. Is that number going up, down, or sideways? And I said, well, Chief Revenue Officer, the number would go down. It's more strategy, less people. And this was it, folks. Such a simple question, but so profound. She asked, so what are you after? I was so ready to hear that because I never put my work in this binary place. I loved my company. I loved my culture. I loved my leadership. I loved everything about it, but I didn't love what I did every day. Isn't that interesting? 20% of my day gave me fuel. 80% depleted me of my fuel. And at that moment, when she made me realize that, I knew that I was going to take a leap. I knew that there was a Jerry Maguire moment to leave sports in my future. I didn't know when, I didn't know where, I didn't know how, but that was what was inspired based on my conversation with Sue Ann. Again, years later, getting to do this on a day-to-day basis, it's all because of that inspiration from Sue Ann. So my point is, sometimes you need a person on your shoulder, whether it's a coach, a spouse, whomever, a mentor. Don't try to chase this thing called purpose and try to activate it on your own. At least have one other person to believe in you and give you that nudge that you need to continue to fight and scrap and claw for having purpose integrated in your day-to-day. And again, this is the model, folks. Inner layers, who you are; outer layers, how you show up. I mentioned how decisions get made through this. Impact, well, could I have created more impact inside of the sports industry or beyond those four walls? The decision became easy. Belief, how I brought that to life. I essentially became a professor after finding my why because I wanted to give back. Before that, it was all about me. Now it was essentially my shift from success to significance and giving back from a more community perspective. Authenticity, again, just tapping out and admitting that I would never sell out for any corporate goal. Growth mindset, that's what allowed me to go to school, go back to school, something I said I would never do. Partnership, you and I lock in arms right now. That's the spirit I enter each day with. And courage, from starting a company to writing a book, all of these different transformations, that just happens to be my story. Most importantly, now it's about you. It's about you taking those three words from earlier. And after our time together today, I want you to apply it to your decisions and your actions in a very similar way to what I just shared. And if you'd like more information on more of the weeds of the process, I'm happy to connect, post, just hit me up, whether through LinkedIn, DM, chat, just you name it. And in closing, I do want to share this quick story in the handful of minutes that we have left, because the last pillar to me is equally as important as the first, and that is to leave it better than you found it. This is transforming from a life of self to a life of legacy. And one of those pieces was something that I learned from my dad, my late father, who I lost when I was 19. And in many ways, I've learned more from him since he passed than when he was alive. Because I always knew what he did. I didn't always know why he did it. Until years after he passed, I got to connect with some of his students. So what he did, he taught at a continuation high school. For those that aren't familiar with continuation, it's typically a kid's last chance. They've been kicked out of traditional school. Many have been given up on, broken homes, disadvantaged neighborhoods, backgrounds, and unfortunately, some end up as statistics on the street. And that was the environment that my dad chose after teaching in traditional school for years. Now, I'm in a barbershop a few blocks away from his high school years after he passes. And in walks a guy and he points right at me. We lock eyes and he says, "You're Mr. Epstein's son." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, I thought you looked familiar. I just wanted to come over and say thank you. Thank you for your dad being the first person that ever believed in me. I've had a job for 2 consecutive months now. And it may not sound like much to you, but it means the world to me." And this was it, folks. He said, "Your dad gave me a reason to think that tomorrow was worth it." I didn't know that some people in the world don't think that tomorrow was worth it. And I felt his words so deeply. And just now I realized it. I'm like, what my dad did was educate. Why he did it was to impact lives. And no wonder impact is what drives me every day. My dad's legacy has become my purpose. And if I could have 1/10 of the impact that he had, then it'll be a great life. And that is a story that I can't wait to share with my little guy. This is him like a day old in January, a couple months ago. And I just want to tell him about his granddad. I want to tell him about the impact he made. I want to just share this story once he can understand it. And honestly, my favorite part of writing the book was the opening dedication. To my future leader, PJ, may you live and lead with purpose, happiness, and a spirit of playing offense. And that's the exact same thing that I want for each and every person on this call, at this summit, and in life. And so for you, ignore the noise above it. We didn't go through all 5. Look at that 5th piece. I want you to dedicate this year to someone special, because the reality is last year may have been one of the more challenging years we'll ever face. We will let ourselves down before we let other people down. So whoever it is, whether they're still alive or whether they're with you in memory, just like for me, it would be my dad, dedicate this year to someone special. And if you do that, you maximize your potential to live and lead with purpose through decisions and actions every single day, because you now have that accountability of having your biggest cheerleader and your biggest fan right there with you every step of the way. Thank you so much. From the bottom of my heart, I'm honored and grateful that you spent this time here with me and at this summit today. Just some contact details. I'm sure they're going to share presentations on the back. And if not, shoot me a DM. I'm happy to share with you other ways to stay engaged, whether the book, podcast. Aaron Hurst, amazing. He was on a few hours ago at the summit. He was my latest guest on the Playmakers podcast. That's how we roll on that. And I would love for you to just engage in any way that you are comfortable. And if today is the last time that we virtually see each other, again, I just wish you the biggest life of purpose, happiness, and attack each day with a spirit of playing offense. And I'll see you at the 50. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day, the summit, travel home safe, and love y'all. All right. Ciao.